Hey everybody, Plushie here, and today I wanted to make a video sort of as an update to my Destiny Order summoning guide. This is coming to NA very soon during 8th anniversary, but as a reminder, NA did get this way earlier, about a year ago, because NA just has special treatment. Like JP did not have an equivalent to this, NA just had it for some reason. But ever since then, servants got buffed, and also there are servant releases that combos very well with some of these older servants. So I wanted to update the list for a bit. It's gonna be really casual, so it's gonna feel more like me talking to you like during Smobcast or something. So hopefully you guys enjoy this type of sort of tone in terms of spoken content. Let's get into the updated list. So before we actually get into the picks, I want to preface a couple of things. First and foremost, if you are going for a DPS, I highly recommend upgrading the MP level of your pre-existing DPS instead of trying to go for a new one if they're both in the same archetype. The reason behind that is because that's just how FGO damage works, especially if you're jumping from MP1 to MP2, and MP2 lower tier DPS is usually going to outperform an MP1 higher tier DPS. Now, there are exceptions, and I will bring them up during the video, but that should be a general rule of thumb. And because of that reason, and since everybody has a very different collection of servants, I'm generally not going to be able to recommend DPSs super hard because, you know, it really depends on what you already have, right? So I'm going to mainly focus on servants that perform very well even at MP1. Either their MP are so strong that despite being at MP1, they're still outperforming other units at higher MP levels, or they are supports, or just servants that don't care about their MP levels in general. So MP1 is not a hard rule, but it is a general assumption for this list as well. So with these 2 points out of the way, let's get into Sabers first and foremost. So for Sabers, my top pick is still going to be Nero Bride, just like last year, because even to this day, Nero Bride is still a very solid support. One of the biggest reasons is her first skill, which is a 30% MP battery as well as a 45% MP gain boost. This is a really powerful looping support skill, especially for quick looping, because none of the Scotties actually have MP gain boost in their skill set, so quick DPSs actually benefit a lot in terms of their refund from Nero Bride. You would find a lot of people actually swapping out one of the Scotties for Nero Bride just to have better refund, especially in triple Scotty comps. A Nero Bride is almost always going to be better than a third Scotty in terms of refund, so that's really good. She also just has really good other support skills as well. Her second skill is a targetable 40% attack up as well as a 50% star gen up for 3 turns, and both of these are really solid effects. The attack up is very big for a supportive skill. And then finally, the third skill is a nice defensive skill with a 20% defense up, a 3000 HP heal, and a 30% anti-sky power mod. This skill also has a really short 5-turn cooldown, so if you're especially against like a sky attribute enemy, this is going to be really good in both boosting your damage as well as keeping you alive. You can even treat her MP as a supportive effect because it is a 20% defense down and crit down for 5 turns whenever you use her MP. So you don't really have to spam this in order for this to be effective. Even if you just use it once, it's gonna have a very long lasting effect. So again, you know, for people who are only getting the first copy of Nero Bride, I think it's completely fine. You should mainly use her as a support. She's also a decent DPS. She does have an upgraded MP, and also the buffs that I just talked about that are really good on someone else are going to be really good on herself as well. The only other Saber I would kind of recommend is going to be Beniema, because she's also kind of a support. And after her most recent buff, she is now a 50 MP self-charger as well as a party 20 MP charger. So if you care about multi-core, this is the so-called Taikobo battery, and that's pretty good for multi-core. She also has, again, really good supportive effects. Her second skill is an AoE 20% defense down for 3 turns, as well as a AoE 30% crit rate down. The defense down is pretty good. And the third skill is a charisma as well as a party-wide buff removal resistance up by 100% for 1 turn. And this is a very rare supportive effect, especially if you want it for the entire party. And finally, her MP, even though unupgraded, does hit both chaotic and evil, so she has double power mod. So at MP 1, if you are specifically targeting against chaotic and evil servants, then her damage is actually going to be pretty okay. So yeah, overall, really solid Saber. Everyone else, I would say, is just going to be level up the MP level of whoever you already have. For archers, there aren't really any like really legit supports in my opinion. The closest thing to that is going to be Takasugi. He does have a party-wide quick and buster buff, as well as overcharge boost and a targetable 50% crit up and cooldown reduction by 1. So you can potentially use him as a support in certain min-turn runs, or he pairs well with Tonalico in particular because Tonalico appreciates both overcharge and cooldown reduction at the same time. However, I would still say in most cases he isn't going to be that useful. His DPS is solid, but overall, you know, you can kind of just pick any archer that you already have and level up their MP level. I feel like for most players that's going to be a better choice. And for a DPS archer that doesn't care about MP levels, it's going to be Super Orion. It's the same pick that I had last year because he is just so solid even at MP 1. He doesn't have a damaging MP, so that's the main reason why he doesn't care that much about MP levels, and he does a bunch of buster crit damage. He's mainly going to be a challenge quest DPS. He's not really good at farming, not even good in card locking comps, so forget about it. And other than the massive amounts of buster crit damage that everybody knows him for, he also essentially has infinite debuff immunity as well as infinite invul pierce, because his MP gives himself 3 turns of invul pierce as well as 3 turns of debuff immunity, and he can easily use his MP at the very least every 3 turns. So against certain bosses, he's gonna completely shut down some of their gimmicks, so he's very good at it as well. Other than those 2 units, I would say just pick whoever you have that you want to level up their MP levels of. In terms of single target archers, the very high damaging ones are not out yet, like Ptolemy and Tutankhamun. And also, arguably the best overall single target archer right now in JP is Bavanshi, the 4-star archer that is currently on rate up, I believe, in NA. So if you really want a strong single target archer, you should actually roll for her instead. And in terms of AoE archers, it's better to just pick whoever you have and level up their MP levels. Lancer is a class that actually doesn't have any supports, so I'm just gonna go straight into the DPS section. And in my opinion, the best DPS to pick if you're picking for MP1 is going to be Skahak. And Skahak, I'm gonna go as far to say that she is the strongest single target Lancer right now in the game ever since her buff. I believe she already had her buff when I made the first version of this video, but for some reason I didn't mention her or something. But the buff is cracked. It extended her 3rd skills, Anti-Divine and Anti-Undead, to 3 turns. And this skill is on a 5-turn cooldown. And these are 100% anti-trade power mods. So they're insane. You can even apply Undead with Summer Wuza Tien. So if you have Summer Wu, Skahak is an even better pick than usual, right? And the skill also gives her a 3x3 turn effect that charges her MP by 20 flat whenever she attacks. This also includes her MP. Skahak was already a lot better at spamming her MP since the introduction of Mighty Chains, but now with this buff, she can actually back-to-back MP as long as you get a Brave Chain from her. And you know, when you're soloing with her, she can easily back-to-back MP as well when this skill is in play. And her MP is really broken to spam because it not just hits very hard due to it being upgraded, it also has a guaranteed stun. So against bosses that don't have stun immunity, which is most of them, Skahak can kind of just shut them down completely. Like, you're not going to be taking damage every other turn when you're using Skahak as a main DPS. Her other 2 skills are also really good, like her first skill in particular, on a 5-turn cooldown, 50% crit up and SAR absorb up for 3 turns, and an evade is super good for both just normal play and solos. And the only demerit is it being 80% chance to land, but her second skill buff fixed it because it has a 3-turn buff success rate up by 20%. So now it has no demerit, it's just a 5-turn cooldown skill. The cooldown doesn't line up completely between her first and second skill, but you can kind of make it line up if you like space them out correctly. So overall, I think Skahak is just so nuts as a single target Lancer, so solid even at MP1. If you don't want to pick Skahak, you can still go for Melusine. Melusine is still arguably the strongest Lancer overall in the game because she's a 2-in-1 deal, both a single target and an AoE, and her AoE form is still one of the strongest Buster Loopers in the game, especially if you have an MLB Black Grill. And equipping her with MLB Black Grill will kind of mitigate the fact that she might be MP1, because compared to other units that might need 50 MP starting charge CEs to loop, Melusine's damage is going to be a lot better because of that MLB Black Grill, even at MP1. So it kind of like balances it out. So she's a really good pick as well. And finally, my honorable mention is going to be Lancer Artoria, because she got a really solid buff this year, where she got a 20% party-wide MP damage up, as well as a 30% round table knight MP damage up, both for 3 turns, attached to her charisma. So her own looping damage is now actually extremely high. I think almost as good as Melusine if you're using Rising Mud Rain, but she's also decent at multi-core. The reason she's not like an actual highly recommended pick, in my opinion, is because for multi-core purposes, MP1 is gonna still not hit that hard. In my opinion, you might still want MP2. And in terms of single core looping, why don't you just pick Melusine, right? So she's a decent pick, but I don't think is as good as Melusine or Skahak. For Rider, my top pick is going to remain the same as last year, which is going to be Rhaenys. I think Rhaenys, after her MP upgrade, has become a top tier support, and everybody should try to get a copy if given the chance, and Destiny Order is kind of the perfect chance to do so. Her MP after the upgrade mainly now gives the entire party 3 turns of MP game boost. Even at MP1, it's a 30% MP game boost, and it affects both offensive and defensive MP gain, meaning that you not just get more MP from attacking the enemy, you also get more MP from taking attacks from the enemy. This of course also helps Rhaenys get her next MP a lot easier, because now she has more MP gain, and this kind of can snowball out of control, and eventually if you play your cards right, you can semi-consistently keep up at least 2 stacks of this MP in play at all times, which is very good because this MP is also a AoE 30% defense down. So having a constant 30 to 60% defense down on the enemies is also really good in terms of, you know, how much damage you're doing. The MP after the upgrade also now gives overcharge to the entire party for 1x1 stage for 3 turns, and this can obviously help with Castoria synergy, so you can run her in an immortal comp. This can also help other units such as Tonalico that really desperately need overcharge, and because of how spammable this MP is, you're constantly going to have overcharge boost on your entire party as well. The MP of course has another really big selling point, which is it removes all defensive class disadvantages, meaning that all Berserkers are now no longer super crispy and easy to die. This obviously doesn't help units like Summer Castoria in particular that much, because they are already really, you know, tanky, but units like Lilith, for example, who isn't arts based, really appreciate this effect, and also the MP gain helps her a lot as well. And also arts units like Summer Ibuki, who doesn't have any innate survival kits, in my opinion is going to pair better with 1 Castoria and 1 Rhaenys compared to paired with double Castoria if you're going into a longer fight. Rhaenys' skill set is also really solid. She is a 50 MP charger, but specifically it's split into a party-wide 10 MP and then 2 targetable 20 MP charges. This can be very useful for certain units when you want to loop with them, such as Oberon Buster looping with Black Grill on, or Koyan Light Buster looping. So atypical Buster looping can use this special battery spread, and also the skills just have really good effects. One of the targetable batteries has a 3-turn 40% attack up, which is very large for a support skill, and the other one has a 3-time invul as well as a debuff resistance up by 30%. And the debuff resistance up gets overlooked a lot, but it pairs really well with either units with innately high magic resistance passives, making the unit kind of a pseudo debuff immune unit, or On the contrary, you can use this on units that have like debuff resistance down demerits, such as Typhon or Lilith, to sort of patch that up against certain bosses that, like to exploit that weakness. My second recommendation is also going to remain the same, which is going to be Constantine. His MP after the upgrade is super cracked. It gives the entire party 3 turns of Buster up and MP damage up. And it's also a super tanky MP. It gives the entire party 100% defense up for a turn that can even scale higher with overcharge, meaning that if you don't have any defense down on yourself and the enemy doesn't have any attack up on them, you're already taking 0 damage. But he also just gives the entire party a 1-hit invul for 3 turns. So the enemy would have to go through both invul and defense to hit you, and the invul is even stackable in a smart way. So for example, if this invul and Merlin's illusion are present at the same time, the calculation is going to prioritize non-hit based invuls. So if you're taking a hit with Merlin's invul, this hit based invul, which is only 1 hit, is not going to be consumed. His skill set, other than the second skill, which is another Buster up for the party and a Charisma, is not as strong as Rhaenys. They're mainly focused on helping himself get his MP back, which is the, real juice of his entire kit. So his first skill is a self-taunt for a turn and MP game boost. His third skill is a star per turn and a battery. Both of them also help him get his MP back. And finally, the honorable mention I'm going to make is Iskandar. Iskandar's first skill after the buff gives himself a 30 MP battery, so now he can Buster Loop with really good damage. But more importantly, it gives the entire party Ignore Defense for 3 turns. Ignore Defense for the party is a super rare supportive effect. The only other servant that can do it is Sherlock Holmes, and he has to use his MP for it. So if you really don't care about Rhaenys or Constantine, or you already have them, then Iskandar can potentially be an additional utility piece that can be used to counter certain bosses as a support. Top pick for Assassin should be obvious. It is Koyan Light. She is a meta support. You do need her for Buster Looping, so that alone should be enough reason, to be honest. But also, I believe she's just a better support in general nowadays because of the implementation of Append 5. Essentially, all of your characters now have a 1 turn shorter cooldown on all of their skills for their first cycle, so single Koyan Light is actually pretty viable now. In farming, we've seen characters like Typhon, Ereshkigal, and Takeda Shingen, who has 5 turn cooldown batteries that can actually combo with single Koyan Light double Oberon for Black Grill looping. But also in challenge quests, Koyan Light is just good. Like, I really often use her cooldown reduction on Merlin instead of my main DPS, so that Merlin can use his busted skills very fast right after using them for the first time. Of course, I have 2 other picks for people who already have Koyan Light. Number 1 is going to be Tez, because he's still one of the best multi-core farmers in the game. He's the only unit that has a self 50 MP battery and a party 30% MP battery. He's also just a super solid AoE assassin. He's good at looping, he has Spacer Star ramp up, and when he loops, he charges the entire party, so he helps like Castoria get their MP back, for example. And he also has a party-wide invul, just for some reason, and he has invul pierce on his MP, so he's just super good overall. But his problem is that at MP1, his damage is not very good, especially in multi-core where you're not dumping all the buffs on him. He might miss the kill even on wave 1 for 90++ sometimes, and that would kind of suck. So if you don't want to pick Tez because of that, you can also pick Kama. Remember at the start of this video when I said that it's usually a better idea to level up the MP levels of your pre-existing DPSs rather than getting an MP1 copy of a new one? Well, Kama is the exception, because after her MP upgrade that gave her the anti-charm, her MP1 damage is literally higher than every other single target assassin at MP5. Yeah, that's how ridiculous this is. And this isn't even tied to a skill cooldown, because again, her MP is the one doing the charming. So whenever she uses her MP, she's just gonna be doing this much damage, which is so stupid in my opinion. Obviously, she can miss her charm, and bosses can have mental debuff immunity, for example. So her damage at MP1 without the charm is still the highest out of all assassins at MP1, but will lose to majority of the assassins at MP2. But that doesn't really matter, does it? In most cases, she's gonna be able to land her charm, and she's gonna be able to outdamage all of these other assassins. Kama's very useful in farming as well, kind of acting as a Kintoki figure, because she is one of the highest neutral damaging DPSs in the game, and she has 50 MP battery. And she's the best alter ego killer in the game, in my opinion, because of her third skill, giving her class advantage for 3 turns. She's still better at killing alter egos than Phantasmoon, in my opinion, who is a straight up pretender who always has class advantage, just because her kit is like built way more for challenge quests. She can, of course, also charm lock enemies, and then, you know, be very good at solos. We already went through that multiple times, so I'm not going to go into that. Overall, Kama right now is so much better than every other single target assassin that if you lack one, she's always going to be the best. Caster is the juiciest spot in this entire list because all of the meta supports are here. Top pick is, of course, Castoria. Like, who is surprised? She has been the best support in the game for 5 years straight, and nobody has been able to touch her even a little bit. So if you don't have Castoria, please pick Castoria. But my second recommendation this year is actually going to be Merlin. It was Scotty last year, but Merlin after his buff is just so good. His second skill now is a party-wide 10% MP battery, and the star gen is extended to 3 turns. So he's actually now a really good star gen booster on top of his MP also passively generating stars. And it also gives the entire party 50% crit up for 3 turns. So now he's not just a 1-turn crit buffer, he has a 1-turn super high crit boost with hero creation plus this at 150%, but the following 2 turns are going to be 50%. And finally, the cooldown of Illusion is reduced to 6. So you can actually use this skill pretty rapid fire, especially considering a Pen 5 now exists as well. So I usually actually just use this skill immediately on turn 1 for the charge and the crit buff and the star gen. And by the time I need to actually tank an MP with the invul effect, the skill will be back, right? And this also makes Merlin a party 30 MP charger, because his first skill is a party 20% MP battery, and now the second skill is a party 10% MP battery. So he can even be used in certain farming comps. He's also like the best finisher for specifically CL farming comps, like even better than Oberon. I have calculations for that in my CL review video if you're interested. So if you want CL, I think Merlin is also kind of a must. And overall, he's just such a good support now. I use him even in non-buster teams, on mainly quick teams where the quick DPS likes to use buster crits for damage. Scotty, of course, still my third pick because it is Scotty. You can just have Summer Scotty for quick looping, but having triple Scotty is still always a good option. And her MP is super underrated. It's a good defensive MP. It actually counters insta-kill, which sometimes comes into play. And it has a really long-lasting attack up for 5 turns instead of 3 turns. And the crit buff is very high. So Scotty, still a good pick. And finally, my honorable mention for the people who already have all the previous 3 big caster supports, which is actually quite a lot of people, is going to be Murasaki. I think Murasaki is super solid just as a pure support. First and foremost, she has like 4 really good supportive effects against break bars specifically. So she has buff removal resist for the entire party, which is super rare. I already talked about it when mentioning Beniema. She has party-wide debuff immunity for 1 time 3 turns, which is really nice. She has MP seal on her second skill. And finally, she has buff block on her MP. So what I mean by countering break bars is that bosses, when they break their bar, they usually like to do a couple of things. They like to charge themselves to full and use their MP. They like to remove your buffs. They like to debuff you, or they like to buff themselves. And Murasaki can shut down all 4 of those effects with just 1 unit. And she's also a really good offensive support because she has 30% power mod against demonic, 30% against good, and 30% against chaotic. So you're actually going to hit 1 of them in a lot of the cases, and even 2 of them in some cases. And when you get like 60% power mod out of this, she's actually one of the better offensive supports out there. And she even has a 30% defense down on her first skill as sort of a generic offensive effect. She's not a very good DPS, unfortunately, unless she's hitting like multiple traits, but I think as a support, she's super solid. Berserker is honestly a pretty difficult one to pick from, in my opinion. If you want a pure support, I would still recommend Nightingale, despite her being permanent, because Her first skill is a 3x 3-turn debuff immunity, which is pretty rare. Usually they are either just 1 turn or a 1x 3-turn effect. So 3x 3 turns is really good protection against enemy debuffs. And her third skill is kind of like a mini Koyan Light. It has 50% buster up for 3 turns, 30% buster crit up for 3 turns, and a 20 star bomb, all built into one skill. It even only has a 5-turn cooldown, so she's actually pretty legit as a buster support, especially against bosses that are heavy on debuffs. If you want a more limited option, then Summer Ibuki is a great pick. She has decent amount of buffs, which is a charisma and a 30% buster and arts double buff, and she has a targetable cooldown reduction by 1. So I've definitely used her a lot in min turns, as well as generally as a cooldown reduction support. She also can still loop decently well at MP1 because she's a Berserker, and also she can use Black Grill to loop very easily. And if you want to run an Immortal team, you can pick Morgan, because Morgan, Merlin, Castoria is still the unbeatable trifecta for 99% of the challenge quests in this game, and especially after Merlin's buff, that team just got even better. Other than those, I highly recommend just trying to level up your DPS Berserkers MP level. Like, this is especially important in Berserkers because you're going to be bringing Berserkers against multiple classes and not just one, so their MP levels are actually worth a lot more than normal classes. So yeah, you should absolutely go for just a higher MP level for whatever Berserker you already have. Extra 1 is another category that already has a meta support in it, which is Summer Scotty. So Summer Scotty is going to be top priority. She's good in quick, she's good in buster, and she's basically required in quick looping as well. So Summer Scotty, top pick, not even close. Other options I want to bring up are Ruler Artoria. Ruler Artoria is a pretty underrated support. Her party buffs are actually kind of insane. Party-wide 50% crit up, as well as a party-wide 40% attack up as a charisma effect, which is really, really high. The highest conditionless charisma in the entire game. She also, of course, has her signature better card shuffle. So you can exclude one of your members' cards completely after the shuffle. So it's really good for, you know, boss killing min turns if you want just Brave Chains for your main DPS. And it can even be comboed with Summer BB for card lock farming. It is not as consistent as BBCL, but you sure get a lot more buffs than BBCL. You can also run comps where you just have multiple DPSs that are good at doing card damage, so that you technically always get the cards that you want because both of your DPSs want their cards. Speaking of BB, Summer BB is now a recommendation in my opinion because of CL. So either if you want to run the BBCL card locking farming comp and you don't want to roll for CL, then you have to pick Summer BB and borrow a CL. And if you want to roll for CL yourself, I still recommend getting Summer BB because double Koyan Light CL plus Summer BB is a very good farming comp for CL single core. So you should probably still own BB if you want CL. So regardless of if you want to roll for CL or not, if you want to use CL in any way, you should get Summer BB. There are also other decent supports in this list, mainly Himiko. I think she fell off a little bit though. In most cases, Constantine kind of replaced her job as a value buster support that can repeatedly buff the party. She's only really good with units that want overcharge a lot, such as Tonoliko. I don't even think she's the best in Immortal anymore. I think Morgan is firmly better in Immortal comps than Himiko, but she's still an okay pickup if you already have all the other units I mentioned, or if you don't care about using CL, then obviously Summer BB gets a lot worse. Another honorable mention is going to be Moriarty. Ruler Moriarty combos very well with anti-evil servants, so again, Tonoliko and also Estrella. If you have either of them at like MP5 or you're trying to main them in any way, you're trying to use them as your main DPS in boss fights, then I think grabbing one copy of Ruler Moriarty is pretty nice. And also he's just a really good arts looper after his MP upgrade. He does really good damage and he ramps up, so he's super nice. For extra 2, we also have another meta support in Oberon. So if you don't have Oberon, you should absolutely get Oberon. That's just how it is. And if you already have Oberon, there are a couple of solid picks for supports as well. Van Gogh is a super good crit support. She's not going to be as useful in farming, even in card locking comps. I usually don't use her, but she's a premium crit support, even when you're not pairing her with existence outside the domain DPSs, because she can spam her MP very easily, especially after the buff. Now she gets 20% flat charge whenever she uses her quick card and consumes a curse stack. And she also just have star absorb up, star generation on top of the crit up. So it's a whole package for a crit support. She's also a super good solo unit because she can spam her MP and stun lock the enemy with the terror, especially after her recent buff. Once again, she can spam her MP a lot easier in solos. Dolman is another really good support that doesn't care about MP level at all, because he's mainly doing insta-kill with his MP instead of actual damage. Specifically, if you want to farm this node, this QP node in the casino on Bleach Earth, you need Dolman, because double Dolman plus another insta-killer is the best comp to farm this, and it's super easy. And even though this sounds ridiculous to pick a unit just for one node, you're going to be doing this for like 2 years, potentially, every day, 3 times. So Dolman can be very valuable even if you only use him for this one node. He's of course also good for buffing Chaotic Evil Servants, you know, a lot of attack up, a lot of crit up, and he's also good at insta-killing other stuff in farming, but it's not that common in most cases. And finally, of course, Proto Merlin is also a prime pick for art supporting, and she's usually the top pick for the secondary art support. You pair with Castoria for an arts team in a challenge quest because she gives overcharge and she is a Merlin, right? So she's automatically really good for slow play, and she's good at like crit burst for arts servants, even though I feel like most people don't care about that. That's more of a min turn thing. And overall, she's just solid. She has a lot of starting charge, including her passive and a pen too, so she can like immediately pop off with her MP as well. It's not like she's the end all be all. You can also always just borrow a copy for boss fights, but I still think she's a super worthy pickup if you don't have her. So anyways, that's the end of the video. It's a lot longer than I wanted it to be, but that's just what happens when you talk about a bunch of servants at once. So for the TLDR, for Sabers, you want to pick Nero Bride if you don't have her. And if you do, you can consider Benny Emma. Everyone else is just picking for MP levels. For archers, if you want a DPS that doesn't care about MP levels, go for Super Orion. If you want a support, you can consider Takasugi. Everyone else, you're just picking for MP levels. For Lancers, there aren't any real supports, so if you want a strong single target, pick Skahak, arguably the strongest single target Lancer right now in the game. If you want a stronger overall unit and also a good Buster Looper, then pick Melusine. Everyone else is kind of just picking for MP levels. For Riders, Rhaenys is the best, easiest to use support, so go for her first. If you already have her, then pick Constantine for a Buster support that is also really good. You can also consider Iskandar specifically for his party-wide defense ignore utility, but other than that, you're just picking for MP level ups. For casters, you should go for Castoria if you don't have her, absolutely. If you already have her, then go for Merlin. If you already have Merlin, then go for Scotty. If you already have all of the big three, then consider Murasaki as a niche support. You can also, of course, go for Miss Crane if you like min turning or buff stacking, but I do believe Murasaki is a little bit better than Miss Crane at this point as a pure support. For assassins, you should go for Koyan Light, absolutely first priority. And if you already have her and you want multi-core, go for Tezcali Polka. And if you have Koyan Light already, but you want a single target nuke, then go for Kama, no question. For Berserkers, it's a little bit more complicated. If you want a utility support, you can go for Nightingale if you didn't pick her with your SSR ticket. And you can go for Summer Ibuki if you want a cooldown reduction support. If you want solid loopers at MP1, you can go for Ibuki for generic, and you can go for Musashi as a Saber servant counter specifically. If you want to go for immortal comps, go with Morgan. For extra 1, I recommend, of course, picking Summer Scotty before anything else if you don't have her. And if you already have her, you can either go for Ruler Artoria if you don't really care about CL's performance and you just want a card shuffle support and a generic crit support, or go for Summer BB if you specifically want to work with teams that does contain CL. And for extra 2, first and foremost, get Oberon if you don't have him. And if you already have him, it really depends on your account and what you're looking for. If you mainly care about arts teams against bosses, then pick Proto Merlin. If you mainly care about having a strong crit support, then pick Van Gogh, especially if you have a existence outside of domain DPS that you use a lot. And then finally, if you care about insta-kill farming, then go for Dolman, especially if you really care about farming that QP node on Bleach Earth and you're doing it already every day for 3 times with your Storm Pods, then Dolman is basically a must. So yeah, hopefully that was helpful, and then let me know if you have any other questions regarding specific picks that you want that I didn't mention in this video in the comments. I'll try to reply to as many of them as possible. And this video has killed my voice, basically, because of how much talking I've been doing. So I'm gonna cut it here, and then I'll see you guys in the next one.